little bit about your background, and and we'll just see where the conversation goes. The intent is not for me to try to encapsulate all of your life story,
Okay.
but just seeing if you have any interesting and fun stories that you want to share. It could be like how you know Eric.
Okay.
No, what?
Actually, how do you know Eric?
I know Eric from working at a nonprofit, and he was an intern. He applied for the Asian Pacific American Dispute Resolution Center, and one of the concerns was his age because he was really young. And normally we don't take interns that are under 18, but he seemed very bright and sharp, and I think he was very capable of doing the type of work that we handle.
And what kind of work did he do?
He talked to clients, and I gave him some busy work. I kind of like type stuff and that easy sort of stuff, but he did it well.
That's great. And what did you do there?
I was the administrative director, and so I
And,
handled the HR, IT, accounting. Wore many different hats.
And so, what did the organization do?
What we did was we provided conflict resolution services to low-income communities. And you don't have to be Asian American to participate. And so people who can afford mediation services can apply on a sliding scale. We charge them about $18 administrative fee, and they get to present their case.
So, is it like usually if I have, let's say, a problem with my, I don't know, friend or relative, and we want to try to solve it, is that those types of people who would come to your service, or?
We want to get those types of people who come in on their own. Some of them were court mandates.
Oh.
So the ones that have a problem with their neighbor or brother, we wanted to handle family cases as well, but they're kind of hard to reach. The Asian American community are they don't like to talk about their problems. They like to handle it within their own family. A lot of it was landlord-tenant issues. People who had problems with their landlord, they were getting evicted, trying to mediate something where they could have an extension on their rent, perhaps maybe like getting their security deposit, just like a dispute on some damages. Tenants would say these damages existed before they were in the apartment. Other people would say that, no, the tenant caused that. So security deposit is kind of subjective, so.
That's true.
Yeah.
And have you always been in nonprofit?
I've pretty much been in nonprofit all my life. I love it. I went to Loyola Marymount University, and I majored in political science and Asian American history. I went to LMU because it's a school that believes in social justice, and I've always believed in helping the community. My ultimate goal was to be a professor, and it takes some time to be a professor. You have to have your master's degree. And I went to Cal State LA for public administration. I'm working on my master's, and I realized that's not really what I want to do. The subject was kind of dry and procedural. It wasn't enough critical thinking. I didn't find it challenging. I did get all A's, but I dropped out about halfway in the program, and I decided to work in a nonprofit and said, hey, I want to take a break, make some money, work in a nonprofit. I ended up getting stuck there. It's kind of, once you leave school, you don't want to go back. It's challenging. And I have a son. He's 2 years old, and I find it harder being a graduate student than having a son, a baby. Anybody can have a baby, but having a graduate degree is difficult. You have to pull all-nighters, lots of them, the stress, and it's a lot of work. If I showed you my picture where I look like in college, I look 10 years older then than I did now. So people are always amazed. They're like, oh my gosh, how come you look younger now? Being 34 versus when I was 21. I was like, because I'm not in school.
That's funny. So tell me about your background. Like, were you born in this country?
I wasn't born in this country. I came here when I was 2. I was living in Korea, Daecheon. That's where my family's from.
Where's that?
Chungcheongnam-do. And my grandfather was local politician. And he married my grandmother because I guess he was a student, and he stayed in her house, and they ended up dating each other. And my grandmother's mother found out and said, you have to take responsibility and marry my daughter. So my grandfather did. And my dad met my mom. My mom, her parents passed away when she was 16. And so they own like a little drinking place. It's not like a sushi, but a drinking place. And my mom was like left alone. She didn't have any parents, and she met my dad, and they fell in love and they got married in Korea. And my dad, he kind of felt bad because my mom was living with my grandparents, and since she wasn't the one who had a traditional education, the family asked her to take care of two other kids. There were aunties and they were teachers, and they asked my mom to take care of them. So my mom went a little crazy taking care of me and two other babies, doing the laundry, cooking and cleaning, basically being a housemaid. So my dad said, let's go to America where we don't have to deal with this. And my dad came to Texas first, and he worked at a Stabingo. It's like a 7-Eleven type of place. And so he worked night shift. He was a cashier, and he planted a little nest, created some money and savings, and then called my mom and me to come over when I was about 2 years old, and we stayed with him. And during the stay, my mom was working at Continental Airport. She was a cleaning lady, and she worked day shift. My dad worked night shift, and in the process of all of this, I guess their marriage kind of led to an end. It was very difficult, I guess, not seeing each other. When he's at working night, my mom's working day, and their personalities are quite different. My mom is a go-getter. She's very determined, motivated, strong Korean American woman. My dad is very nice, kind, a little lazy. He's my dad. I still love him no matter what. He has the greatest heart. But he never really wanted to make more than each paycheck. He wanted to give all his money to church too. He was really recruited by the Korean American church. He believed in donating a lot of his money to the church. My mom didn't mind doing that, but she said, take me out on the weekends too. Let's live life. Let's do stuff. She was one, after working at Continental Airport, she opened her own business, a swap meet in Houston. She basically built that business by herself. The frame, the wooden frames of it, she created it. She did like all the hammering and everything.
What did you call it? Swap
It's
meet?
this little swap meet, like a little store in a swap meet.
Oh.
She
What
sold
exactly
like,
is that?
huh?
What is a swap meet?
A swap meet, it's like, I guess, they have malls here that are very professional looking and very nicely built. Swap meet is more like a warehouse, and then they have like individual stores in there,
시장.
like a shijang. Yeah, less
In Korea.
fancy place. And my mom was doing that, and eventually she got tired and she decided to take off from my dad. But when she did, it wasn't like where she could tell him, I'm gonna leave, because my dad loved her so much. She basically just ran away and cut all ties with him, and she left me around age 5, and she moved to New York. And so my dad was kind of shocked and could not find my mom and stressed out, and he didn't know what he had to do because he was always working. My mom was the one taking care of me and working. So he pretty much wanted to put me in foster care. And somehow my mom found out that that was going to happen. So she came back down to Houston and picked me up and took me to New York. And so I was living with my mom in New York, went to school there. And then my mom found a boyfriend, and she decided to get remarried. And in the Korean American community, it's very shameful if you marry a woman with a kid. It's considered taboo. And the person my mom married, my stepfather, he's very traditional Korean American guy. He's so strict, and his family doesn't believe in marrying a woman with a kid, and he's never been married either in his life. So my mom had to make a decision when his family was going to come visit. What is she going to do? Is she going to present me as a daughter, or is she going to try to get rid of me? And having me getting rid of me and sending me to Korea to my grandparents was the easier option for her back then. So around age 11, my mom told me, because I had forgotten that my dad was gone when I was 5. She told me that, surprise, your dad is alive. He's not dead, because she told me that before, and I was too young to remember when they divorced. I said, okay, Mom, he's alive. And what next? Well, we tracked him down, and I'm sending you to Korea. I tracked down grandparents too, and you're going to go to Korea, and your dad's going to meet you there. And so I was crying, and I said, what did I do wrong? Why am I going to live in Korea? I don't want to be there. I don't even really speak Korean. And so she sent me to Korea to live with my grandparents for 3 years. And my dad was just not doing well financially in LA. He could not take care of me. So he had made a request to my grandparents to please take care of me while he tries to finances. So living with my grandparents is quite an interesting experience. I could not go to school because it was very expensive to go to English school in Seoul. I lived in the Shugor, Daecheon, and I was teased the minute I got there because I was different than everyone else. I had my ears pierced, I had long hair. People were like, "Who is this girl coming to our neighborhood? Does she think she's better than us because she can speak English?" It was a weird experience. These kids were throwing rocks at me because I have long hair. Usually in Korean schools, if you have long hair, you do ballet or you do some sort of art. And it was a very difficult period in my life. But I also believe that it was a very necessary moment in my life as well because it taught me things about my grandparents that I would have never known. I got to meet my family for the first time since I was 2. I also got to meet interesting people, be in Korea, learn about all the our culture. I also taught myself how to read Korean. I'm not very good, but I taught myself the alphabet and I'm able to read it. And I tried all the food, and it was just interesting. And I didn't know really what to do with myself. And my grandfather introduced me to another family member who owned like a hagwon in Korea in Seoul. So I stayed there and I taught for a year. I taught English, and they said that when you live in America, your accent is different. And so even the Korean people who live in Korea, when they teach English, and we used a book called Side by Side, their accent is different, and people want to know the proper way to say things. So about 3 years later, my dad was able to, his finances were better. I moved to LA. He tried to put me into high school, and it was Los Angeles High School. It was very different and unique because when you think of Korean Americans, you think of the model minority. You think of Asians excelling, doing well in math, and their parents putting them into the best schools and doing their laundry and making all their meals and making sure that education is number one. Well, I hate to debunk the model minority myth, but that wasn't the case for me. My dad was not really educated. He didn't have any resources. He just put me in LA High. He didn't even know that was a good school or not. He just put me there because it was closest to where I lived on Western and 7th Street by McDonald's. So I went to LA High, and it was just a very unmotivating experience. I was in class in math, and the teacher was teaching poker in math class instead of math. And I was like, what is going on here? And even though I didn't really get to go to junior high school, having been in Korea, when I was in New York, I was actually doing really well in elementary school. And surprisingly, what we were learning in elementary school was what we were learning in high school at LA High. Because education is so much more rigorous and demanding in New York. They have such a good system where you test. And if you don't pass the test at the end of the year, too bad, you flunk. You just stay behind. Doesn't seem like that was happening in California. Regardless if you can pass the test or not, it seemed like people were being herded like cattle to the next group or the next level because there's no space. And so when I was in a couple of the classes, I wasn't motivated and I would get into fights. I was going through my puberty years. I felt like my parents weren't around. My dad really wasn't watching what I was doing. And so my transcript has so many like fights and things. I never really started a fight, but if someone picked on me, like talked about my family or something, that's where like my pushing point, my button. I had a lot of fire and rage in me, and that's when I would get upset and it's like, don't talk about my family or you don't know my dad or whatever, and cause a riot and fight. And I also met other friends that were like me, having been going to LA High, who would be dropped off to class, and as soon as their parents leave, we would hop the gate and would ditch. And so I met a lot of friends who were also come from families with single parents, who were involved in gangs, who weren't quite the model minority image, who also sold drugs. And some of my friends are in prison for life sentences. They're not coming out, they're there. And other friends, or went another route. I had some girlfriends who work in hostess bars. They're 12 years old and working at hostess bar. Can you imagine? That's happening in K-Town because they run away from home, they have nowhere to go, and hostess bars are hiring them. And they give them lump sums of money to pay for rent and clothes. And it's really scary thought. I was fortunate that even though I didn't go to school, I had it in my mind that I do want to go back when I'm 18. I just would not want to go to high school where I was. And I was really fortunate. As soon as I turned 18, I started going to West LA Community College. And before that, I was working at a sushi restaurant. I was making money off of tips. And I guess it's okay after you're 16, you can work with a permit. And I was doing that. I chose to work and make money, pay for my own car, and pay for my own rent with my dad. And I went to West LA College, and basically within the next semester, I became student government president at a predominantly African American school. And I stayed there for 3 years. I started in the lowest level of classes, remedial English and math, worked my way up. And then I got a full scholarship to Loyola Marymount University, and I finished school there. And I decided that because I've had such an interesting, different, unique life like many other people, instead of blaming my life and my parents, I want to help out. I want to make a difference. Instead of looking at people down, I want to make sure when I do, I give them a hand up. And that's the type of ideology I have, where I believe in social justice and helping out with youth and being involved in a community. And I've been involved in a community now for almost 20 years. I've been involved in so many different organizations, from organizations Chinese Americans. I'm on the board for Chinese Institute of Engineers. I was on the board for Los Angeles Junior Chamber of Commerce. I'm on the board still for West LA Community College. I'm there. I help them fundraise because I was student government president, and I cannot forget how much that college transformed my life, and meeting the right mentors and professors really makes so much of a difference. And what's the matter? Makes so much of a difference in transforming your life and making you go from being a rebellious teenager who doesn't really have much going for them into graduating college. Graduating college may not be a big deal for Asian Americans, with over 50% of Asian Americans having a college degree. That is the stats, it's reality. And so many of them graduate and also go to grad school. But for me, it was like, oh, my story is different. Where I grew up in an area where none of my friends have a college degree in K-Town. A lot of them, two female friends of mine who were very close to me, ended up going to the military because they didn't have any other choices. The ones that did end up working at a hostess bar later on, when they started families, they worked at the Korean American Bank. And it's nice seeing them change and also better their life later on in the future. But I just felt like living in K-Town was a very scary experience. And I'm glad I moved to San Gabriel Valley, where a lot of Chinese people live. And I ended up marrying a Chinese husband, and he was awesome, and everything was great. So I stayed with him. We were together when we were 17, and we were together for 8 years, 4 years married, and then 4 years together. We've been friends for 20 years, but because we grew up together, he was more like my brother than my husband. And then I had a period of my life where I kind of wanted to be single, and now my new husband, who is also the father of my son, is someone I'm more compatible with. He's also went to college, and we are able to connect on a deeper level. And he's a busybody as well. And my ex-husband, he was a sweet guy, but kind of like my dad. He doesn't like to clean. He doesn't like to go out. So I think it was perfect for me while I was dating him in college, because I had to stay home and get my homework done. But now that after college and being on the workforce, I don't want to stay home. I like to live life. I like to go out. I tell people what I do in one weekend, and they're like, wow, we don't even do that in 1 month. We go to like 5 or 6 different events. Yeah.
It's thank you for sharing that. It's amazing, actually. I'm sitting here going, holy crap. Primarily because you told the story in such a matter-of-fact manner, but I can't imagine it was that easy. I mean, how did you get to a point where you were able to process it all? Deal with the anger, deal with the sense of abandonment you must have had. I mean, as a young child growing up, I can't imagine it. Being told your dad was dead, and then, oh, by the way, it's alive. I mean, we kind of laughed about it, but I mean, that could not have been easy. Like, how did you get over that?
Well, people meet me now, people who are new people and in the community, they look at me and they're like, oh my gosh, Lisa, you have such a beautiful family, a great husband, a beautiful kid. And they're like, wow, your life must be perfect and you look really happy. And I tell them, it's not that my life has been perfect or easy or, you know, it's more that I try to make the best out of my situation, and I'm thankful and grateful for where I am today. Because I know where I was before, and it sucked. Now I'm so much more appreciative of life, and I feel like living more because I have a bed to sleep on. These are things I didn't have while living with my dad because he was poor. I slept on the floor with one blanket and one telephone. And so now I'm really bubbly and smiley, and the simplest things make me so happy because when you don't have that, it's truly, you're grateful. And on September 16th, it's my mother's birthday, will be the first time my mother and I will celebrate her birthday together in 10 years. More, no, actually, since I was 10, I'm like thinking 10 years. But because we have seen each other when I was 25, that's when my mother and I reconnected. But when we saw each other, it was always in a period where it was like during the summer or later on. And I haven't seen her on her birthday and she hasn't seen me on my birthday. So I'm really looking forward to seeing my mom. And through all of this, I could have so much anger, hate, and animosity towards my mom. But what for? When you are angry at someone, it's poison to the soul. It's so toxic for you. It's like wishing the other person's dead, but you're really killing yourself. And I know that my mom has not had it easy. Her parents passed away when she was 16. She didn't know how to be a mom. She was trying to survive on her own, trying to make the best means for herself. And I understand that. And maybe in her heart, she thought that me being in Korea with my grandparents would have been a better option. I don't know what she was thinking. I was a point when I was 16 years old when I would call my mom and harass her and say, Mom, why did you do this to me? Why did you leave me? And scream at her and be upset. Now, I don't need to do that. I think she is very aware of herself, of what she's done, and she is sad in her heart. And now I tell her, Mom, you know what? Thank you. You made me a stronger person. I would not have met my husband, have my son now. And quite honestly, Mom, I don't want to live in New York. It's cold. I don't want to be there. I'm happy in California. I'm so thrilled. My mom is in New York. She lives in College Point. She runs a business. She's been running a nail salon for 15 years. She pulled herself up by her own bootstraps. Her business is successful. She put my sister through Boston College. My sister just graduated law school, New York Law School this May, and she has a teaching position at New York Law School. My sister is one who has been taken care of all her life. My mom paid for her law school. She paid for her Boston College. Very different life than mine. For me, I had to pretty much take care of my own and find a way. And in that process, I did find a way where I was able to get financial aid, scholarships. I don't have any college debt from Loyola Marymount. It's a private university, but I did it all on my own. And when there's a will, there's a way. Both of my sister and I, we graduated college. We went very different routes, but
Is she a full sister?
she's a half sister. So she's the sister of my stepfather.
And do you have any strange feelings towards her because you feel like she's gotten everything and you've gotten nothing?
I get that question a lot nowadays, not towards my sister, but people. I have friends of all socioeconomic classes and backgrounds. I have friends who pay $40,000 a month just on their mortgage, car payments, housekeeper, nanny that live in Palos Verdes. And then I have friends who just got evicted and they had to live in a month-to-month hotel. And some of the people that are lower on the lower socioeconomic spectrum, I hear them talking and they're like, oh, I can't stand rich people. They don't understand what we're going through or blah, 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 blah. And I used to be like that. And I used to be like, I couldn't understand. Or so-and-so's parents gave them a car and such and such. But you know what? Big deal. It's their life. If they're lucky, they're lucky. Don't hate on them. Focus on yourself. If you feel like you don't have a nice car, go get a job. And if that's your priority, try to buy that nice car. It's not their fault. And rich people sometimes come down on poor people and say, those people are poor. Why do they live their life like that? Why are they on welfare or so-and-so? And so it goes both ways. And I tell people.
What is it? What is it that enabled you to have that mindset? Like, because, it's one thing to say, like, I'm not wasting my time with anger because it's a toxic thing. It's toxic for you, even though you're the one that done unto. If you hold on to that, it ultimately kills you, not the other person. And I think that's absolutely true. But it's an incredibly profound um, thought process, and like, what enabled you to get to that point? Like, did something happen, or not something? Did anyone help you, or like, how did you process it to a point where you were able to transcend, all of these petty things and really have a broader perspective like that? Like, for those of us that are looking for some guidance, like.
I think I like one of these quotes that says like weak people they revenge, smart people they ignore, strong people forgive. And so because I've gone through so many things, I think I built an armor of resilience. And I know that the world doesn't stop for anyone, and you just have to keep pushing. A lot of times I didn't have a chance to be depressed because I had to pay rent or had to do something. I don't have a chance to just sit there. I have to take care of myself. And so when I started West LA Community College, I met very strong women and mentors. My English professor, I started her class, I could barely write a paragraph without having like 50 grammatical errors, run-on sentences, and she really inspired me with her story, and she mentored me. And I met another professor, May Dubois. She was amazing. She graduated high school at age 12. She runs marathons all over the world. And then another professor, Elizabeth Smith. She was amazing because she's like the professor that's also your friend that you can go to and talk to about life advices. The first professor was very professional and she was very smart and helped me with my grammar, but she's one where I couldn't knock off the professor even after I graduated because I respect her like a boss that you admire. You're not gonna call her by her first name. And May Dubois is just go, 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 go. She's nonstop. She's just running marathons and traveling and writing and doing all sorts of stuff, living her life, taking sabbatical. And the One That Loves Life is on Facebook now still, and we communicate daily and we interact. And whenever I had a problem, depending on what type of problem it was, because if it's a problem of where I want to, not a problem, more like if I want to transfer somewhere or something, I would go to Professor Leonard because she's really smart and studious and knows how to be very professional. If I have an issue about life that I wouldn't necessarily talk to Professor Leonard, like, oh, I'm going through this with my husband, I don't know, I want your advice, I would go to Professor Smith, and she was there. And strong people and strong female mentors, they uplift, they show you how to get somewhere, they show you other alternatives. And so I've always surrounded myself with positive people. And generally, even among women and friends, women are a little bit different than men, I think, because they can get a little catty sometimes and they could always try to put people down because of their own inner insecurities. I'm lucky that in my life that I have a lot of female friends and I have a lot of female strong mentors because I choose to be friends with people who are equally strong or stronger so I can grow. I don't want to have friends who are weak. And so people that, like my best friend for almost 17 years, she was very weak, and I kind of like was her friend because I wanted to lift her up, but it was becoming an issue where it was taking her 10 years to just graduate community college, and it was kind of dragging me down. And so I kind of had to say, let go of energy vampires, and if they don't want to help themselves first, then you just have to let them go. You can tell them, you need to get counseling help, and if they don't want to go, then what can you do? You try. So.
Wow. Oh, all of us have our glasses on the shirt, it seems. All the cool guys, anyway.
Yeah.
I guess you're cool too. Wow, that's an amazing story. Thank you. I'm gonna show my daughter, who's 17, this video and say, learn from her. That's I agree. It's my daughter just recently went through a leadership program at Brown, and up until this point, she was having a lot of difficult time, I think, at school because she always felt like there were expectations that were different for women than for men, for boys and girls in school, and she just never felt in place, amongst her peers, because she just felt like she was always the one speaking out, in saying, in favor of all equality for women. Things should be.
Have her be a lawyer. That's perfect for her.
Actually, I think she's actually looking at academic track potentially as well. To enable and to teach other women as well. But I think she met an incredible professor actually, who really showed her that leadership comes in all different forms. It's not just whoever's the loudest.
Right.
It's different styles of leadership, and she really internalized that, and I think it enabled her to really feel and really start to understand herself. And I think feminism is the means through which she was able to heal herself. And so I think this would be a very relevant story of surrounding yourself with strong mentors.
It makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah.
And college is a great place to have the opportunity, because it takes you outside of your ethnic enclave in Koreatown or wherever, where you normally would not be exposed to such leaders or people that think different. When I went to LMU, it was interesting because they had a group of kids from Inglewood visit the campus, and they looked at our cafeteria and they're like, "Oh my God, this is such a fine dining restaurant. We've never seen such a place." And I could totally relate to that, because if you're in your neighborhood and that's all you see and that's all you do, you don't really see what's going on in the world. You're limited. Your mind is not broadened. My name is Lisa Quan, and this is my Korean American story.